And at that point in time, there was a 12-foot angel standing there. And I felt very much drawn into her energy. So being raised Catholic, I was like, oh, I want to see those feather wings, because first of all, she was much more massive than I ever imagined an angel would be. But who doesn't want to see these big feather wings? So as I went to look for them, what I actually saw is that they were made of light, and they were very much like the aurora borealis, where they would move and they would span almost what seemed to be eternity. I truly could not see the end of them, where they tapered off. And I remember the immense love that I felt from her. Again, like I almost felt like a newborn baby, in the sense, like when you hold that newborn baby, you look at it and you think, you're perfect. That was the level of love that I was feeling.
The two biggest questions from my perspective in life: why are we here, and what happens after we die? Well, we examine near-death experiencers' accounts from all over the world, men and women, and their fascinating trips across the veil. We appreciate you joining us here on the channel, and don't forget, when you're done, if you wouldn't mind, to like, share, and subscribe, and leave us your comments. We created this channel for many different reasons: a fascination with the material that I've always had, but also to help people by presenting individuals who have died clinically and come back. They recounted their experiences in aggregate, different yet similar, to help you navigate through life in a better fashion. That's our goal. And not only near-death experiences, but experiencers rather, but we feature clinicians, academicians, people in the role, because a lot of people need license to be able to sample this material and give it veracity. And one of the individuals who we're very pleased to bring on now actually lives in my area. How about that? I can't see your house from here, but we're both in the Phoenix area. Michelle Clare, psychic medium, 3-time NDEer. We thank you so much for joining us today. I know we met at IONS last year with Jeff Jansen, who's a colleague of yours and mine, and we are really pleased that you come on, because we're going to talk about angels, and you're an expert in angels, and I don't know anybody who doesn't like angels.
Right. They're amazing and magnificent. So, and we all have at least one.
So this voyage for you, what was life before your first NDE like? Did you grow up spiritually? Were you religious? What was your family life like?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, and I remember at a very young age, there were things about it that did not resonate with me, but there are also things that really did. I love the idea of thinking that I had Mother Mary, angels, and saints, and all these beings of light that wanted to help me, and if my dog was sick, I'd ask St. Francis for help. And if I lost something, I'd have St. Anthony. So I loved having that. And as a medium, I will tell you, I love that we have a network available to help us here on planet Earth, which is basically what that was. The challenge for me was when I got to first grade and my beloved little dog had died. I remember going into Sunday school and telling my teacher, and she looked at me and she said, well, just so you know, your dog didn't go to heaven. It doesn't have a soul. And I remember being devastated. And so there were definitely moments throughout my life where there were pieces that I was like, oh, this feels very true. And other pieces that I was like, I don't think that's right.
Well, and you're not the first one to tell me that. I mean, Megan Brown said the same thing. A lot of individuals who were raised in organized religion, either Catholicism, Protestant, Lutheran. I don't hear too many Buddhists say that, but it's typically, there's a hierarchy in the church. The church was inspired by God, but it was written by men typically. Although if you look at some of the ancient texts that were found, there's the wisdom, the book of wisdom, the book of Sophia. There were a lot of women who were instrumental in creating the nucleus for Christianity. And I know that's probably a topic for another day, but let's take people to where you were in your life when you had your first NDE and kind of outline that for us.
Yeah. So right before that, I want to talk about when I was 12, my grandfather transitioned. And at that point in time, I started having communication with him. And I didn't know this was mediumship because I didn't know that word. But I would tell my mom, Grandpa's saying this. And my mom would say, that's what you would think he would say if he was still here. So I really started to learn, like, okay. And it was only between Grandpa and I. So I just kind of kept this to myself as I moved on through life. And then what happened for me was in April of 2000, I had my first near-death experience. And at this point in my life, had been newly married. We were at the hospital that day because my sister-in-law was having a baby. And I was in the hallway talking to her RN, who happened to be my friend from high school. And as she and I were talking, I had a massive seizure. And what I remember next is opening my eyes and seeing my grandmother holding me with my head in her lap. She was looking down at me, smiling. The most beautiful, young, vibrant image that I had of her was what she looked like. And I remember feeling the blissfulness, the timelessness. Everything felt perfect. I felt as though I had never done anything wrong. I wasn't in trouble. I was more than good enough. It was everything you could actually hope that it would be. And as I was laying here with my head in her lap, I looked up next to her. And at that point in time, there was a 12-foot angel standing there. And I felt very much drawn into her energy. So being raised Catholic, I was like, oh, I want to see those feather wings, because first of all, she was much more massive than I ever imagined an angel would be. But who doesn't want to see these big feather wings? So as I went to look for them, what I actually saw is that they were made of light, and they were very much like the aurora borealis, where they would move and they would span almost what seemed to be eternity. I truly could not see the end of them, where they tapered off. And I remember the immense love that I felt from her. Again, like I almost felt like a newborn baby, in the sense, like when you hold that newborn baby, you look at it and you think, you're perfect. That was the level of love that I was feeling. And I remember thinking in my head, what is your name? And she answered me. She said, my name is Madeline, and I'm one of your guardian angels. I was a little surprised because I didn't know anything about telepathic communication at that point in time. Even though that's what Grandpa and I were kind of doing, it didn't click or register to me that that's what that was. And I just remember being in awe and feeling absolutely so safe and so loved. The next thing I know, I hear someone yelling, code, code, code. And it's like I'm dropped out of a building. I am back in my body. I went from feeling like a feather to 2,000 pounds of cement. The difference in density was unbelievable. I remember trying to lift my hand, and my arm felt like it weighed 500 pounds. So during that seizure, I had quit breathing. And since I was in the hospital, they were calling the code team. So that was why I heard them yelling, code, code, code. I was admitted. They never found out why I had the seizure, and I've never I've never had another one again. But what that showed me in my human form, first of all, also at that point in time, I didn't know the term near-death experience. So I know I had this experience that was more vivid than my daily life, but I had no container to put this in. But what I did know was that heaven, as I would have called it or still call it, knew I was coming. My grandma, my guardian angel, were right there waiting for me, even though I had no idea I was going there. And so I think that's really important with my work and the things that I like to share with people. We're not living this life alone, but also no one transitions alone. It does not happen. And I know this was something that was very challenging during COVID times. People felt like their loved ones were transitioning alone in the hospital. On the human side of the veil, it might appear that way, not on spirit world side of the veil, because we are met with angels, life guides, loved ones. In that heavenly realm, strangers are friends and family. You can't not know the oneness.
Right, because you're all interconnected. We're all interconnected. And I like Anita Morjani's metaphor, which is, you look at the most ornate tapestry in a museum and you get up like within 2 inches of it and you only see like 8 threads that are connected. But if you take 20 steps back, they're all connected. We're all connected. We all create the beauty. We all have an impact on one another. And you certainly learned that. I wouldn't say the hard way. It was probably a good way, because it was the hard way, because we'll get to 2 and 3. But I guess you had to be slapped around a little bit to figure it out ultimately.
Yes, I did it the hard way. I will agree with that.
So just real quickly, I mean, fortuitously, it happens in a hospital, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but they could never diagnose what the issue was. That's remarkable.
And I never had another one. It was unbelievable. But my mom would say to me, gosh, Michelle, what if you had been driving the car? Like, you would be dead. You would have crashed into people. Unbelievable. And also divine timing, right? I truly believe that it worked out exactly as it was supposed to.
So you have this interaction, and then we'll fast forward to the second one, and you had a precognition that perhaps you shouldn't have this procedure done, but we're not all that sharp, those of us that are here. So you ignore that prompting, and what happens then?
Yeah, absolutely. So I go in for surgery the next day, and I even talk to the doctors, and they say 45-minute procedure, you'll be home, outpatient, no problem. I have that pit in my stomach. I had anesthesia before, and I remember counting backwards for the anesthesiologist that day. Typically when I've had it, it's just been a blank, no dream, nothing, no, just nothing.
Black.
Yeah, literally. And so I remember counting back for him. The next thing I know, I am looking over at the operating room door, and my beautiful white German Shepherd, she was 102 pounds. Her name was Tahoe, my soul dog, walks into the operating room. She had passed a couple years before, lays her head on my gurney, kind of smiles at me, you know, that cute little dog smile. And we are gone. And we are on this phenomenal beach. And on this beach, there are colors that we don't have here. There are what I would say even higher vibration emotions than we have on planet Earth. Like, if we think of joy as being the highest one, add 10 more levels to that. This is the euphoria, the blissfulness, the absolute happiness that you're feeling. I'm again in this timeless space. I'm looking at every piece of sand, every drop of water, every molecule and every flower and leaf was radiating from the inside out, the light. And I love it. It still catches me when I see the light coming through the leaves of the tree and they look like they're lighting up from the inside out. It always takes me back to this, because that was what it was there. The light truly comes from the inside out. So I'm with this beautiful, beautiful pup of mine, and we are running on the beach. She looks like she's about 2 years old. She's healthy, vibrant. We're telepathically communicating. She's happy that I'm really there. And I start to notice after a while, I'm not getting hot. I'm not getting tired. I'm not getting thirsty. The wet sand kind of feels like clouds. I'm kind of like, well, this is interesting. The funny part of this is that human Michelle, I hate to run. And I tell people, if you see me running, call 911. Like, that's an emergency situation. That is not me going out for a jog.
Yeah, you and me both. I hate.
Yeah. Right. So here I am in this heavenly realm, just blissfully jogging down the beach with my beautiful German Shepherd. And the next thing I know, I can feel my son, who was 6 weeks old, and he was at the house with my mom at that time, calling to me. And I go to him instantly. Everything there is instant, right? Instantly, from the operating room to the beach, to the house with the baby. And I could feel that he was really scared. I was getting ready to leave him. And I remember saying to him, Josh, I will find a way to stay. I'm not going to leave you. I started to pray. I started to say, it's not my time. My kids still need me. I need help. And I'm instantly back in the operating room. I see Jesus walk in. And Jesus walks in as my best friend. I did not need to confess my sins or bow down and pray or ask for forgiveness. It was literally like this beloved family member walking in. And in those moments, I saw the operating room light up with this white golden light. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up in post-op. And my 45-minute outpatient procedure turned into a 3.5-hour emergency surgery.
Wow.
Because they had ruptured my uterus in multiple places and missed my artery by a millimeter.
Now,
So
we don't want to say what hospital Jesus is a resident in because everyone's going to request that place.
exactly,
But
I have good news. Jesus will go. He'll meet you where you are. You choose the hospital, he'll be there.
Well, and is it your thought, because it's my thought, just from all of the stories that I've examined and just the recounting of details like you just brought, in our system of Christianity, he is the archetype. Jesus is the archetype of deity, right? So if we're going to transition, what better way of solace for us to be met by Jesus, right? But if you're a Buddhist, or if you're a Taoist, or if you're, I don't know, an Aborigine in New Zealand, perhaps deity represents itself differently to help you make the transition.
100%. So as we do transition into that heavenly realm, we are truly met with light and love and compassion and comfort. So we are going to be met to a certain extent by what we're expecting to find. So if you're expecting to see Buddha, 100%, or if you're expecting to see Jesus in that heavenly realm, all of these beautiful energies work together. They're not like, hey, this is my lane, you stay in your lane, Buddha.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not. And so it's really beautiful to know that in a lot of ways we will be met with what we're expecting, because heaven wants to provide us with that comfort.
What was the amount of time in our linear time between your first and your second? How many years?
6 years.
6 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now we go to the third, which your anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks, right? Was it 11/1/11?
Yes, absolutely.
And here you go again. And this one is, I think, really compelling, and we'll talk about the reasons why I think it is, and you articulate it first, but this happened at your house, correct?
Yes, this one happened in my house. So yes, 11/1/11. At the house I was living in at the time, we had 14-foot ceilings, and about 12 feet off the ground, I had battery operated candles. So once a month, I'd have to change the batteries, and then they would light up every night and bring a great ambiance. At this point in my life, I've been married for a while. My kids are 5, 8, and 10, so they're older. And my younger two are home. The oldest one is at school and in an after-school program. So I said to my younger two kids, I said, after I put this candle up, we're going to leave to go get Ashley. I remember climbing the ladder, and as I got towards the top of it, it started to shift. And I literally thought, this is going to hurt. I had no doubt I was going down. Right after I thought that, I was ripped out of my body, not in a painful way, but a fast way. Think bungee cord type energy, right? Mm-hmm. I was turned around, facing my body in the ladder, suspended in the air like a freeze frame in a movie. Wow. Again, feeling blissful, feeling unconditional love, feeling this timelessness. And I'm standing with these 3 people that I have never met before. They feel like they would be close family or friends. One is an Asian man, one's an Egyptian woman, and one's a Hawaiian man. And as I'm standing there with them, they said to me, what would you like to do? Would you like to stay or go? And I was in my head a little bit. I was thinking, well, this is interesting. My body's going to hit the floor in a second, and I have forever to decide. Nobody's rushing me to make a decision. And as I was watching my body and the ladder suspended in the air, I saw this angel come in dressed in deep red and gold. And as soon as I saw this angel, I knew, this angel's here to either take me home or shift something so that I can stay. Mm-hmm. Again, the life guides want to know, what would you like to do? Would you like to stay or would you like to go? And as they ask me, my attention is drawn to my younger 2 kids in the kitchen. And as I see them, I realize I'm not done being their mom. I want to be their mom longer. I want to have more experiences with them. I was really aware that it wasn't what I felt like was time. And as I made this decision, I was downloaded with a lot of information, and I was told, okay, well, you're going to go back then, and you need to start working with your mediumship and helping people in the way that you can. Your marriage will most likely end in divorce, and you have trauma ahead. And in this heavenly realm, I remember being like, okay, send me in, piece of cake, I got this. Right. And yet they're telling me that they were very clear. You have some big, big challenges ahead. And in that heavenly realm, I had no worries about being able to handle them, navigate them. It was like you telling me, hey, we're out of fries at the restaurant. You're going to have onion rings. Okay. No big deal.
I love onion rings.
Me too. So as I come back into my body, I've made this choice. I've been downloaded with a lot of information. Some of it still gets revealed to me or it comes up in memories. So I didn't come back with everything, but I fall and I hit the back of my head on the corner of my granite island. So I had a 5.5-inch skull fracture from the base to the top of my skull. I had a brain bleed. I lost my equilibrium, my taste, my smell, part of my hearing, and part of my vision. What happened was I literally survived the fall by 1/2 inch because it missed my brainstem by 1/2 inch. And that was truly the difference of me staying or going home to that heavenly realm. And when I think about that, the second one I survived by 1 millimeter and the third one I survived by 1/2 inch. The difference between life and death, fear and love, the life that we want and the life that we're living, it's really only about 1/2 inch away.
Well, and I think the important thing, at least that I like to emphasize, is based on the knowledge that I've accrued by listening to your story and many other stories like this, is we have sovereignty. It's delineated in Genesis that you have sovereignty. Now, as we've talked, a lot of the Bible was written by man and reinterpreted, but I do believe as souls, as divine sparks of divinity, we have sovereignty. So within that outline, there you go. You've been given the choice. Do you want to go back or do you want to stay? You agreed to these parameters initially, but you can still extricate yourself from that. You're not bound to that. You have the ability and the autonomy as an independent soul to say, I can stay or I can go. I think one of the most compelling parts of this NDE, at least for me, what you went through, is how, was it your father or it wasn't your father, it was your grandfather who came through with a message about your son and the 911 call?
Yeah, absolutely. So then what transpires from this is my younger two kids, Josh had tried to call 911. He believed the call had not gone through. My daughter ended up calling. So about January 2012, my son started to get really depressed. He's 5 years old and he would say, I didn't do anything to help you. My call didn't go through. He would tell me that, my mother-in-law at the time. And there was really nothing. I would say, Josh, you opened the door for the policeman, like you did help. And he'd say, nope, I didn't need to be there. Sophie could have done it all without me. And so the end of January 2012, my grandfather, the one who passed away when I was 12 years old, comes in and it manifests in a visit to me and says, hey, he's talking to me about my son. He's talking to me about my accident. And then he says to me, there's something on the 911 recording that you should know. And I was just like, that was very strange to me. I did not know I could even get the 911 recording. So I went down, I ordered it. It took a couple weeks and then I got it in the mail. As I put it into play, I hear 911 say, 911, what is your emergency? And my son, Josh, in his little broken voice says, Sophie, what do I say? And he lays the phone down. So for the next minute and a half, they are trying to get the kid's attention. You can hear him say he's going to go push the panic alarm button on the house. She says, hold on, let me call 911. She hangs up. Her call goes through and they connect her even to the firemen who are en route to the house already. So when I picked this little boy up from kindergarten, I said to him, I said, Josh, your call went through. Help was coming. And it was like lifting this 10,000-pound weight off this little 5-year-old. You could see his self-worth just flow back into him. And it was such a pivotal moment in his life and in mine, because that is where I really got the gravity of how much heaven wants to help us here and how much the mediumship that I had agreed to come back and do could change lives, because I saw it firsthand change the life of my own little boy.
That's a remarkable story, and it authenticates that we are in touch all the time. And I have a friend like yourself who's done angelic readings for many years, and I was joking with her about 4 or 5 years ago when we had the trailer for our television show and said, hey, listen, why don't you talk to your people and see if they can help us expedite this to get this show on the air? And she just starts laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? She said, they're telling me you never asked, because we have sovereignty, right? So I don't ever want to burden anybody with my desires, right? So I'm not saying, hey, please help me get this show on the air. Whoever has to watch me. And by the way, I applaud them, because it hasn't been easy probably to watch me for my entire life, because I was a crazy partier in college and, did all the stupid things we did in the 70s. And so I know that they had their hands full, but it does validate, I think, the line between you have the decision to make. It's your decision to make. We don't make it for you. We're giving you the opportunity as your individual soul to say, you can select either route and there's no judgment either way. So for you to come back and then what transpires after your third NDE? Your whole life is turned upside down. Like you said, your marriage ends. I've talked to so many, and you know this, so many people are not the same anymore. The reintegration, getting back into Jeff Olson, who's a great friend of both of ours, went through, he couldn't talk about it for 10 years. Yeah. He was just overwhelmed by being a single dad because, his infant son and his wife had passed in the car accident. It's got to be extraordinarily difficult for you to make that transition into your new life.
It absolutely was. So as I started to physically heal, because I had a lot of physical trauma I had to overcome, and realized, like, how am I going to navigate this? I have this memory of what I agreed to do, but I don't know how it's going to happen. So I started getting a lot more information from loved ones on the other side. They would just randomly show up. I had a friend whose husband had transitioned by suicide. And so I'm just getting these messages from people. So, like any good mom, I'm like, I better go see a counselor. I think I'm losing my mind. So Spirit takes me to a counselor that says to me, Michelle, what a gift. Let's get you a mentor. And so I start training and mentoring with different people for this. It's very much every step I take following the path that my soul is being called on is almost like a different step from my marriage, because my husband at the time did not believe in what I did, was not happy that I had changed, didn't want to understand it. And so the guides were right. As time went on, my 25-year marriage ended in divorce. And I ended up falling in love again with this beautiful soul who taught me how to love and feel love in a way that I never had in my 25-year marriage. It was such a beautiful connection. And his name's Gary. And so I even though I had had this trauma of this divorce and all of these things, there was just light in my life again, and hope in the love department, right? And someone who supported me as a medium, and all of that beautiful stuff. And what happened with Gary was that I knew he had depression. And there would be, every few months, maybe 2 or 3 days where he'd kind of go off the grid. He would turn off his phone, his email. He needed to sleep through it because it would kind of hit him hard. And then he would, come out and be okay for a while. This day, so on August 10th in 2023, I had been in Vegas with my sister and my daughter. My niece had a baby. So, we're all celebrating and meeting the baby and everything. And I had talked to him that morning over text, and I just said, I'm ready to come home to you. It's been a great trip. I'm ready to see you. He sounded good in the text. And then I called him from the airport and he didn't respond, but he should have been at work at that time. So I was like, he's probably with a client. No big deal. Got on the plane, got home, didn't hear from him later. And so I'm like, this doesn't feel right, but I'm, called, text, email, all those things, trying to get him to answer. Nothing. The next morning, again, I'm trying to get in touch with him and I don't hear anything. So I call his work and they say to me that he had called in sick. So I'm like, okay. So at this point in time, his younger daughter, who was, in her mid-20s, was living with him and didn't really want to meet me or anything. So I just drove by his place. Her car was there. His car was there. So I assumed he was having, a hard time, but she was there. So I didn't want to knock on the door or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that. That night we were supposed to go to a party. So I go and everyone asks, where's Gary? And I'm like, I think he's just having a hard time right now. I get home from the party that night. And as I'm in my bathroom getting ready for bed, I feel him come in. I can absolutely see what he's wearing. He looks at me and he says to me, "You sure are beautiful." And my body starts to give out because I know this is mediumship. And I start to shake and I start to cry. And I manage to make it to my bed. And I feel him laid down next to me. He puts his arm over me and he said, "I wanted to be the one to tell you." So I texted hours later, after I could even think, his sister, and she said, "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but yes, he took his life."
So, first of all, that's got to be extraordinarily difficult just without your abilities. But some people would say, well, you're mediumistic. How did you not know beforehand that he was going to do this and intervene? But is that where we all have autonomy with our souls? And so his soul's path could not be interfered with even by someone who loved him so much?
Absolutely. So we all have free will on this human level. And although he wasn't guaranteed to leave by suicide, it was much more likely that he would than other people with other soul plans, right? And I would also say that just because someone is psychic or a medium, or even in life, whoever you are, we're not actually supposed to know it all, right? And the fact is this, what I know is a medium from spirit world. If there was any way spirit or a human could have intervened and kept him here, it would have happened. But he had gotten to the point in time where his soul had closed down so much, there was no opening, because spirit world wants to keep us here too.
Well, and I think when we visited before we came on, one of the podcasts a couple of weeks ago that we did was with Kelly Sammy, who attempted to take her own life, and she came back, and she's a big relief to folks who are despondent and going through similar things, because she knows how they feel, and just like, this gentleman who, his soul was done. It's hard for those who are affected, and I'm sure people like you who are so attuned to soul that you probably have to shut the door at some point and say, we're closed today, because you would be overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed anyway, probably, with mediumship and your family and everything that you go through in your speaking engagements. But if you were out and about and every person's thought was crossing your plane, you couldn't handle it. You would overcook.
Yes, absolutely, because we've got to be able to have the human experience too. Because although I came here to work closely with spirit world and all of these beautiful things that I get to do, I'm also here to be a mom, to be a daughter, to be a friend, and have the whole human experience. So absolutely, the mediums that I know have pretty, what I would say, good control over it. When we're working, we're working. When we're on, and when we're not, the volume gets turned down on it. One of the things that I would like to say specifically about Gary and his suicide is this, that even as a medium who had been working with suicides for quite a few years before this happened, I knew that everyone who transitions is met with light and love and compassion. I knew that he was okay. I knew that he was swept up in that comfort and that blissful love. I had no worries about that. But what I did not have were tools to help me bypass the grief. So even with all of the gifts I have, even with all of the work I have done all of these years, there was no way for me to hop over or around or move through the human side of the grief any differently than someone else.
How were you able to integrate that then? By counseling? Did you seek counseling again?
I did not seek counseling because I went twice and it just didn't feel like a fit for me. So what I did is I started doing life between life regressions. I wanted to dive into my soul plan with Gary. Was this a plan? Did I agree to this? Why would I agree to this? This is ridiculous. Like, no one would want to agree to this, right? I started diving into soul plans with him and really wanting to uncover what and why did this happen? And as I did that, what I found out about between him and I was, number one, it was not etched in stone he was going to leave that way, but it was much more likely he would than most, but it wasn't 100%. And that he stayed longer to be able to feel my love for him, because he would always tell me that I was the love of his life, that he had never felt loved like that before. And that I got to, number one, for me, feel a type of love that I didn't even know was possible, as well as that if he transitioned by suicide, I would be someone maybe more than the typical average person that could help others with him, the experience and the understanding of suicide. So there actually was a soul agreement around this.
Well, and I can see that, because what you do is such a valuable service for those of us who have had people that have transitioned through your mediumship, and to have the empathy with a first person, or a first soul rather, experience with Gary allows you to tell me, listen, Mark, I know it's hard that your wife did this, but I went through it myself. And I think fundamentally, if you were open to it and you went back and you sat at the table where you and her agreed to these terms, and the malleability of the terms, you could go left, you could go right, that you would have a better understanding. But I understand your grief too, because we're in a 3D dimension right here. And the way that we interact with people, we miss people, we yearn for them. So I think, again, to be able to turn it like you did, it became a gift. Almost what a gift to experience the love that you had always sought, and then to be able to articulate that loss to people who have gone through similar circumstances gives you a standing with them that most people don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there is no way to bypass the human grief or miss them in a body when we're here on the earth plane. This is part of, I will have parents or people ask me that, like, when will I stop missing them in a body? And I'm going to say, I love you. And never in this lifetime will that day come, because that is part of our human existence. But the beautiful part is that the love, the connection, and the communication has not ceased to exist. It's still there. They're still connected to you, loving you and communicating. But you're always going to miss having your loved one in a body while we're here.
Let's talk about signs briefly, because I think we visited about that before we came on as well. The signs are so prevalent, but a lot of people ask me, well, how do you know it's a legitimate sign and how it's not something that you desire? How can you delineate the two?
Yeah. So one of the things is I like to play with my loved ones, my angels, and say, okay, give me, let me see 11 and 11 3 times today, or whatever it is that I'm looking for. Right. And then it'll be interesting, because you might notice it on the clock, but then you see it on a license plate, and then there's something about it on a menu, or your bill comes out. You ordered lunch. It's 11:11, right? So ask for something specific, because I will tell you that, but I will also say that our loved ones are trying to give us signs all day long. So you might catch 10 of them, but I promise they sent you 20. They want us to know how connected they still are to our daily life. And so a lot of times in a reading, it'll be funny. Like, someone will come through and say, oh yeah, they're redoing the kitchen floor. And I'm like, you're redoing the kitchen floor? And they're like, well, yeah, well, that's kind of a weird thing for him to bring up. Yes. And he's wanting you to know that he's connected to you right now in real time, that just got done yesterday, right? So our loved ones will give us information that's relevant to our daily life, so that we know they're still right here living next to us.
So just give me for instance, if I come to you for a reading, do you ask for any information prior, or do you do a baseline? Do you do any research? Because I know a lot of people think, these are cold readings, and you're going, oh, Mark, you have a wife. Oh, yeah, she's from Argentina. Oh, you loved her dearly, and she transitioned. And then you take that nucleus of information, then you could spin off anything. How do you do it? Do you just, do I set up the reading and then we just go from there?
Yeah, so they book readings on my website is where it starts. And what happens then is, because I connect with angels, loved ones, and spirit life guides, psychic information, normally in a one-on-one reading, some of all of that will come through because these are the channels that are available to you. But we can definitely fine tune it and try to hone in on one more. If you're like, I really want to talk to my wife, okay, we're gonna really focus on that channel. But you're probably still gonna get some angel messages and maybe life guide and maybe even psychic about, hey, you've got something great coming up in the next 6 months. But that's the way that I work. There's no point in Googling people. When we talk about evidence, first of all, like, let's just say you did book a reading. How many Mark Lewises are there in the world? Like, are you the only
17,212.
Exactly. So the odds of me being able to Google and find just you right there anyway, but without even saying that, I mean, the evidence that comes through from mediumship readings, it's not going to be social security numbers, weight at birth, things like that. It is going to be like, remember every night how we would watch Cheers and then you would kiss me on the forehead and go to bed, or whatever it is. It's going to be something
very unique to you.
Yes, and something that you can't Google. Like, you can't Google that, anything along those lines. So it's going to be stuff like that comes through. Or a lot of times I will have people say to me, I'll say a sentence and they say, that is what they always said, right? And so it'll be something like that.
It must be very fulfilling to be able to give people that type of information that really satiates their soul, because so many of us desire those relationships to be ongoing, and they really are, but we don't know how to tap into it, right? And so you're the conduit, because this ability came to you based on these experiences and your soul contract that you entered into before incarnating. It's got to be very rewarding for the work that you do.
It's amazing. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like just love and passion and connection. And I always like to tell people, your loved ones, they hear what you are thinking or saying out loud to them. So you don't need a medium. I'm not talking to them for you. I'm just helping you hear their response. Okay. But our loved ones, no one is more connected to your loved one than you are. Whoever you are and whoever you're missing, it's not that I'm more connected. I'm just maybe a more clear channel.
That's great. That's great information, because I think a lot of people, and just like we talked about earlier, when I asked for advice from a gal who does something similar to what you do, she just started laughing. And you got to ask, man. I mean, we don't have the license or to always intervene without your ability to say yes or no. Free will. Let's talk about frequency really quick, because I know a lot of people who are adepts like yourself and people that I interview all the time and talk with all the time are saying we're really shifting now. And I feel it, and I don't have the aptitudes that you do on a daily basis. Are we in the shift right now? Or is that why there seems like there's so much yin and yang and so much vitriol, and it's almost like the friction before we emerge out of the cocoon?
Yeah, we absolutely are in that period right now. When I've asked the angels about it, they've told me it's like if you go for a picnic and you're getting up and you're shaking off your picnic blanket to get the grass and dirt and crumbs off of it, right? We are in that shake off phase right now. So it's not comfortable, but what everyone is being asked is really to choose love, right? And here's the example they always give me, and I love this. Like, if I'm looking at a salad for lunch, I can eat it because I'm afraid I'm going to get fat, or I can eat it because I love my body and it's healthy for me. Same salad. I haven't changed one thing. I haven't taken off any croutons, right? But the energy around it is completely different. So what we're being asked to do is, and I know this from my NDEs too, live from a place of love and make decisions from a place of love, because then we are feeding the collective consciousness of love and bringing in that peace, that energy sooner. Right. And one thing that I've been told repeatedly from angels and guides over the last year, it has never been more important for people to have their own discernment and intuition, because ChatGPT, AI, whatever it is, fake news, real news, every channel has both. We have to be able to feel within ourselves, this feels right, this doesn't, and start to use our own discernment. Because when you start to use your own discernment, you're not going to feed into the fear, and you're not going to feed into the hatred. You're going to say that it's more important that I show up in a place of love today, and that ripple effect will carry further.
Well, and it's amazing to me because it reminds me of lemmings going off a cliff, right? I mean, you can choose to be a lemming and you can walk off the cliff, or you can stop and go, hey, you know what? I don't think that's a good direction to go in. And you don't have to ostracize or really demean the individual who has that interest or predisposition towards that philosophy. As a communicator, I always like to say, if I can't talk about it, reason with you to the degree that you accept at least the way I'm looking at things, then that's fine, because you're autonomous and you have the ability. But I feel responsible enough to articulate that to you, to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah. The lost art of communication.
Yeah. Well, it's the old saying, it's all about communication. It gets lost in the message. But I want to talk specifically about if somebody, this is what we ask at the end of every show. If somebody's looking at this, though, and they go, I don't know how to navigate through this, because, you say all this and it's all about love. And those are platitudes to them. I have a sister-in-law who's really given me the business. She's untenable. I can't reason with her. And then globally, if we look at all the conflict, how do we have hope? So how do you or the angels articulate that? And how do you sequester yourself mentally away from all the dysfunction that seems to be so prevalent right now?
Yeah, well, there are two reasons and two ways to do that. Number one, keep in mind, you're going to find what you're looking for. That's the practical human side of it. So if you want to find more drama, more things to be afraid of, more reasons why this world's going to hell, whatever your story is, you'll find it, because that's the world we live in. So where's your focus? Do you want to see the love and light and the kindness and the amazing people that are here on this planet right now? Or do you want to see the bad things? So choose where you're putting your focus, would be the first practical way. The second thing is that as a medium, and when I get to connect with so many amazing people, every one of us has angels, loved ones, and life guides around us on this planet right now, right here. Even our animals do, okay? Talk about, we have 8 billion people plus, not including all of the animals. There are unbelievable numbers of beings of light, grandma, grandpa, whoever on the other side. They're all holding the space for humanity to evolve to the next level, for peace to prevail, and on and on. So there's so much beautiful energy around this planet right now. I am not going to be able, no human is going to be able to find peace in the outside world if they can't find it within themselves first. So as daily practice, you have got to give yourself a place where you find peace. Your favorite song, sitting outside with your cup of coffee. I mean, I don't know what that is, a meditation, a run, whatever it is that works for you. You have got to be able to cultivate peace within before we can have that ripple effect to see it on our planet.
Well, and the spiritual study that I've been in for over 30 years says everything is a sense of, right? So if I approach you with a sense of defiance, you have to either shield yourself from that, or you accept my, philosophy about what I'm trying to say. We are autonomous, we are sovereign, but if you give up your sovereignty, then you run with the pack and you become a lemming and you go off the cliff. So you're right. I think we're like a broadcast set to infinity. Right now, we're dialing in the frequency that's appropriate for love to be all over the planet, despite what appearances say. And we know appearances are always deceiving. So I think you're absolutely right. What you look for, you're going to find. Mm-hmm. So it's incumbent upon us individually to lead the way and carry ourselves in a fashion that perhaps could be an example for others.
Yeah, absolutely. And the judgment is a little ridiculous, that we have of each other. It really is, because as a medium, like I do, it does not matter if you are Baptist, Christian, Islamic, Buddhists, guess what? They all come through in readings. There is not, so the things we look for what divides us. I'm male, I'm female, you're this nationality, I'm that one, whatever it is. I'm Republican, you're Democrat. People are looking for what divides us. Let's look for what brings us together.
Yeah. Well, and I know from traveling abroad, and I would encourage people to do that if they can, that we're all the same. I went to Sri Lanka for a job assignment 3 months ago. For 3 months, 12 years ago. People were wonderful. They were beautiful. They were very accepting. They had a different culture, but their souls were still the same. They interacted with us to the degree that we interacted with them. How can people get a hold of you and either set up a reading or learn more about what you could do for them?
Yeah, they can go to my website, Michelle Clare, CLARE.net. They can book readings, see my services. I also have right now on YouTube, I have Mondays with Michelle. So every Monday morning we're doing live questions and I'm giving the answers out. So subscribe to that and ask a question. And yeah, there are multiple ways to connect with me. So I'm really excited I am not somebody in despair about the place we're in this world and this vibration, because I will always see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I have never seen you frown. Every time I see you give a message and I love your Facebook angelic messages every day. And, I think you've given a practicum on how people who are saying, no, I can't be happy. I look around me, it's all falling apart. You give them practical steps. And I think it's beyond platitudes, because we can all say everything is love, even though it is. But if you don't know how to practically engage with that on a daily basis, I wake up and say, how can I serve today? Maybe it's just a smile to an individual I work at Home Depot in the garden department. If I can help someone find a plant that they like, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be world peace, right?
Absolutely. I think we underestimate the power of our souls so often. Each one of us is actually a very strong whole soul. You deserve a badge of courage for being here on planet Earth right now, but because of that, the ripple effect of love, it can be simple. It can be so simple. It can be so basic. It can be a text to a friend. Hey, thinking about you today. Hope you're doing okay. Or have a great day, right? It doesn't have to take these huge acts to change the world. It's more about what are you doing in your daily life, because that's where your ripple is starting.
I agree 100%. And I know our friend Jeff Jansen's book, The Ripple Effect, is extraordinary, because he talks about the life reviews and how they ripple out, and the interactions that we all, not all, but a lot. You didn't have your life review because yours was almost instantaneous. So you didn't have, but you had a specific goal, which was your mediumship, I think, to finally embrace that role after the third time. I go, okay, I get it. I don't need to do this again. I'll become a medium, and that's how I'll serve, right? And we all have different roles in this play that we're all players in on this video game we call life.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And we do have free will and choices that we can make within that. And right now, everyone needs to use their free will to choose ways to help themselves find peace and feel better, so we can feed that into the collective.
Well, it's been wonderful talking with you. Thanks for taking the time. And we should grab coffee someday, because we're actually not that far from each other.
That's perfect. I will do it. And thank you so much for having me on. I've absolutely enjoyed our conversation.
All right, Michelle. Thank you.